It looks like it is about to pour down outside. It is getting so dark. What up, witches? I wanted to do an occult book review. I have a pretty long list of books in my Amazon wish list, and I think they're on Goodreads as well, of books that I just wanted to read just to gain more knowledge about things and just like esoteric knowledge and just other knowledge in general and just occult books. And I thought it'd be fun to just review these books that I get to see if they're the real deal or if they're just interesting or what I think of them personally. So the first one that I picked from my list was The Book of Forbidden Knowledge. So the full title is The Book of Forbidden Knowledge, Black Magic, Superstition, Charms, and Divination. First edition, 1910, James Smith and Co. New edition, 2016, edited by Carl Marwick. So my impressions on how the book actually looks and feels, it's a pretty thin book. And it is a print-on-demand book. I can just tell by the way that it feels, by the way that it looks, that it's one of those print-on-demand books. I'm guessing it's like the Amazon print-on-demand kind, where you place your order and then the book gets printed and then it gets sent to you. It's not just like sitting around and there's no real inventory of it. It is only 106 pages, and it does tell you that right on the back. It feels like smooth, which is how a lot of print-on-demand books feel. They're very soft and smooth and like butter, which I kind of like. I actually like the way print-on-demand books feel. The pages look fine. They're very crisp and white, and there's not any like ink errors in them as far as I can tell, at least with my copy. There's no errors with the printing itself. There are some grammatical errors, like there's some punctuation in places where it shouldn't be, some extra punctuation where it shouldn't be, and I'm also pretty sure that some of them are missing titles, like this page in particular. Each one of these, it seems like, should have its own title, because this one says Gold Root, what's it say? Gold Roots for the Teething of Children, and then the rest of them aren't about teething or anything like that. So I think each of these should have their own title, just like the rest of these have. And I feel like that was a misprint, and there's a couple of other pages where something like that happens as well, where it seems like there should be a title, but there isn't one, and it's just the subject or the paragraph underneath it. Sorry, I had to cut some lights on. The sky got too dark and I couldn't continue. So as I was saying, as far as the book printing itself goes, it's not bad. It's the quality of the print is actually great. It's more the editing that has the problem. So I don't really think that's Johnson Smith from 1910. I think that's Carl Marwick, who edited in 2016. So step your game up, Carl. As for my actual impressions of the book, the Book of Forbidden Knowledge, it is not. I definitely wouldn't call it that. I'd say it's more like the book of old superstitions that you might have never heard of and weird spells. Majority of the book is just random little spells like thrown throughout the book. It's not really put together in a way that I think makes complete sense. Some of it is organized well, and a lot of it is just like kind of all over the place. I don't really know what this section is exactly referring to. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but it feels a little bit all over the place for me. The first section of the book is essentially full of love spells, like things you could do to learn who your husband's name is going to be and to know if your husband's going to be faithful and things like of that nature. And then it jumps into like lucky days and which days are lucky for you and who was born on unlucky days and who was born on unlucky months, who was born on unlucky days of the week, and just things like that. And then that also gets into marriage. There's a lot of love and marriage stuff that has to do with this book. And less like general spells, more like love spells. Who you're gonna marry, who you're not gonna marry, if you're gonna have a happy marriage, if you can see the person that's gonna eventually marry you, if you can get a name, if they're gonna be happy with you, how to capture someone to marry you, how to capture someone's attention. It's a lot of that stuff in here, which I wasn't really interested in, but it was still kind of cool to see the types of things that people deemed magical and that people deemed spells back in 1910. So that was pretty interesting, because I can just see someone like doing these things that are in this book and people looking at them like, what the heck is wrong with them? There's like 8 pages dedicated to a list of fortunate hours. I think it's only fortunate. I don't think it goes into less fortunate. And it pretty much looks like this. So it'll just say something like October 3rd from 3 till 15 minutes before 6 in the morning, and from 15 minutes past 4 till 15 minutes past 5 in the afternoon, and that will be considered a lucky time, I guess, to be born or to perform a spell that you're thinking of doing, which I thought was actually pretty cool. I think this section of the book was really nice, and I like that it had like specific times and months and days that would be conducive to doing something. After the lucky and unlucky days and numbers and that portion of the book, it gets into my personal favorite part of the book, which is titled Metagrammatism. Metagrammatism. Oh my gosh. Metagrammatism, or the art of fortune telling by transposition of names. This is actually something that I've never thought of before, and I thought it was a pretty cool section. It basically talks about anagramming and the rearranging of a name and how it can like tell you something that might happen in your life or something that you might do. I guess that's the same thing. It's basically saying that names have meaning, and when rearranged, they can tell you either about something that will happen in your life, something that will happen to you, maybe it'll predict the way you die, maybe it'll predict something great that you do in your life. And I never heard of that before, and I thought that was pretty darn cool. So I'm going to show a few examples of what they mean. So on one of them, it has Charles James Stewart, and then if you rearrange that, it can rearrange into claims Arthur's seat. And underneath that, it explains underneath that, it explains what they mean by that, and it's on the death of Queen Elizabeth, Charles James Stewart became James I of England, and thereby possessed the throne with the name given at his birth plainly foretold, which basically means Charles James Stewart claimed Arthur's seat after Queen Elizabeth died. So it's saying that his name rearranged actually predicted something that might happen in his life, or that did happen in his life. And then I actually tried to do one with my name, and I did not come up with anything that was substantial. I went on Google, and I think I put in like Anagram maker, and I typed in my full name, and it didn't bring up anything substantial for me. It was a bunch of words that didn't really make sense, or sayings that didn't really make sense, but maybe for you it'll work. So you should try it and see. Maybe you could predict something about your life. After that, it goes right back into unfortunate days of the week that someone can be born, and I'm just like, wow, that's bleak. It's basically saying, what does it say? Okay, a child born on Monday will be weak and effeminate. Like, what? And then a child born on Tuesday will be unfortunate. A child born on Wednesday will be studious. A child born on Thursday will have great honor and dignity. And someone born on Friday will be strong and perhaps addicted to the pleasures of flesh. Stuff like this, I see no bearings in. Like, this is just wishy-washy stuff for me. So all this lucky days of the week to be born and predicting what type of person you're going to be based on the, like, not the person, but whether you will be like a successful person or unsuccessful person based on the day of the week that you're born, that really has no bearings with me. I don't really deal with that type of stuff. After that, it goes into like clothing, and like if you put on clothing a certain day of the week, it'll have certain type of misfortune on you. There's a lot of superstitions in here. Like, majority of this book is superstitions, because a lot of this is like, if a person gets his measure taken for new clothes on Sunday, he'll be sorrowful and crying. If he gets it done on Tuesday, he'll be good and prosperous. Like, it's a lot of superstition stuff. And then it has lucky days for businesses. There's a lot of like lucky days, unlucky days, days of the week you should do something, days of the week you shouldn't do something. I mean, that type of stuff I think has some bearings. It's more like the ones that I don't really do are the ones where it's like, if you're born on this day of the week, then you're unlucky. If you're born on this day of the week, then you're weak. You know, I don't really believe in that stuff. That's not to say that the astrology and all of that stuff, I don't think that has anything to do with this whole born on a day week business. So I'm not confusing the two. Then there's a couple of spells for like removing corns and flesh wounds and warts and stuff, like how to get rid of a wart, how to get rid of a toothache, which the way that they want you to do it sounds a little bit like you're going to give yourself an infection, but you know, it was 1910, so everybody had infections. And then after that, there's just a bunch of sections like how to catch a thief and stuff like that. It's like pretty short and quick spells after that. There's a good 8 to 10 pages on just like short little spells, like how to obtain money, how to open locks, how to understand birds, how to be safe while traveling, like little things you can put on yourself. And then they get into that section where I said that like they were missing some titles, which it still does look like they're missing some titles to me. So I don't really know. I mean, you can kind of like infer what it's saying from here, but it seems like all of these are missing the titles for what the spell should be about. It's a lot about herbs in that section, so that obviously is just like, it's just herbal stuff, so I get that section. Then after that they have some talismans, and I really do like, I like this part of the book too. This is another one of my favorite parts, the talismans. I think those are pretty cool to look at and to research and to get into all of the symbolism in it and try to figure out where it's all coming from. Like that part I think is cool. I wish they would have delved deeper into what all of the symbolism actually means, but they more got into what you should carve it on, what type of material you should carve it on, and what type of tool you should be using to make it. I like that part too, them telling you what you should be carving it into, like whether it's iron or wood or like silver. They were telling you what you should put it on, but I wish they would have also said what each part of it signifies. After that, it gets into like popular superstition, like superstitions that everyone knows about, and it gets into the history of it, which I actually really liked as well. It tells about why these superstitions came about and where they might have originated from. So it's like the knocking on wood, the evil eye, the black cat, things like that. So I really like that section as well. Then it's a couple of more spells after that, and it's the end of the book that really kind of throws me off, and I was like, what the heck is going on? It's these longer stories, I guess, kind of. It's less of like, this is how this spell goes, and more of like, here's a story where I show you where something happened, and I kind of fell asleep. Like, I don't know, that part of the book did not really resonate with me at all. I didn't really enjoy that part of the book. But the rest of it, I actually did kind of like. I really liked, I don't think they should call it the Book of Forbidden Knowledge, but I do really like the way they get into the superstitions and how they came about and stuff like that. And I like learning about the old superstitions because it's fun to know about superstitions that people like, especially someone like me who's not, I wouldn't really call myself superstitious, so I think it's interesting to look at all the old superstitions and just see how strange they were. I think overall, for the print of the book, I definitely give it a 10 out of 10. For the grammar in the book, I guess I'll give it a 9 out of 10. It's not so bad. It's just missing a couple of titles and some of the punctuation is off. But it's not like this is like the original version of it, so I can see how something might be lost in translation there from where it was like the old version to where it's the new version now. I can see how some things could become lost in there, and I can see why there might be some extra punctuation. So 9 out of 10 for that. For the actual content of the book, if it was just called the Book of Forgotten Superstitions, Black Magic, Charms, and Divination, I actually think that would be a more fitting title. But because it's called the Book of Forbidden Knowledge, I don't think that it actually matches what the title of the book is. So for the book itself, I'd probably give it like a 7 out of 10, somewhere around there. Only because it's crazy cheap. It was like $5 on Amazon, so if it was like $13 or like $20, I definitely would have rated it lower, but it's $5. It's not a lot. It's not a big book. It's a light, easy read. It's not like super complicated language, which a lot of occult books like to use, where you're like, what the heck is going on? So I enjoyed that. I like that I was able to read it and I didn't have to open up a dictionary every 2 seconds. So I definitely would give it like a 7 out of 10 for like the overall readability of the book and just the information that's in it. I just don't think the title resonates well with the actual information in the book, because the Book of Forbidden Knowledge, it is not. Overall, do I think that it's a book that I would recommend to people? Yes. I think it's interesting. I like the spells in there. I like the way they delve into the superstitions. So yes, I think it's definitely worth the buy. I think $5 is definitely a cheap book, and it's a cheap book that's new. It's not like it's used. So I think this was a good buy. I think it was a good investment, and I like it in my collection. And I think it was a good first book in my little occult book series. I have other ones that I'm going to do too. So we'll see how it all shapes up. I will leave all the information on this damn blog. Bye.